Well, welcome into another edition of Talkin Ducks as Oregon loses to Oregon State in the rivalry game in what was once a promising season, quickly unraveling in Corvallis over the span of a quarter and a half. We'll break it all down. Plus, Kenny Dillingham leaving Oregon to become the next head coach at Arizona State, what that means for Dan Lanning and his staff moving forward. And then we'll also give you our thoughts and predictions on the upcoming Pac-12 championship game. But let's go ahead and get to our opening drive, brought to you by Les Schwab Tire Centers, where they've been doing the right thing since 1952. And, well, we bring in Joey Harrington, who's thrilled because Team USA got the win over Iran just a few moments ago. Anthony Newman, who his West Linn team won a state championship. My man filling up a whole handful of rings. And then there's Aaron. I mean, you got out of bed and made a sandwich today, I guess. So congratulations from the Oregonian. But let's start with you here, Joey.
Why?
Oregon's up 31-10. All the momentum in this game. There's under 5 minutes left in the third quarter. You feel like they're punching their ticket to the Pac-12 championship game, a chance to go to the Rose Bowl. And all of a sudden, everything completely unravels for Oregon. The Beavers rally. They win 38-34. Where do you begin in trying to explain what happened in Corvallis?
I don't know.
Great,
Aaron,
great segment. Awesome. Where do I begin?
Yeah, where do you begin?
It was just a calamity of errors. It's difficult to even find a spot to start from. I mean, it was a little bit of everything, right? The D couldn't stop the run, even though they knew that the pass wasn't a threat. And the special teams blunders were mesmerizing. The fourth down situation and decision there. It was just a bunch of things piling on top of each other. If you remove one of them, they win. But all together, just like the events that led to the sinking of the Titanic, they all created this disaster for the Ducks. So I just think that Oregon just has to try and figure out how to just move past it and just chalk it up as this eventful moment in time that they just could not really control. It got away from them.
But Anthony, is there really any, I mean, yes, eventually you move past this, but you also have to look at the gravity of what this game was, right, Anthony, and how quickly things turned around and now what it means for the program moving forward when you've got losses to Washington and Oregon State in the same season, and you go from playing in potentially the college football playoff 2 weeks ago, and now it feels like just a handful of errors, correctable errors, have this team now looking at the Holiday Bowl potentially and having to fight for a 10-win season. So in Aaron's analogy of this being the Titanic, what was the iceberg for Oregon this past weekend? What was the issue that finally sank them?
I think it was a bomb that hit the ship. I don't know. I mean, there was no iceberg. That was an explosion. You know, we can point our fingers in so many directions. As a player, and you guys know this, you point the finger at yourself. I hope most of the time you should during these football games when it's a collapse like this. But, you know, from coaching to offense to defense to special teams, it was a team loss. It was a program loss. And I don't want to do this, but let's give credit to Oregon State. They wanted it more than the Ducks. They came to play. They came to play 4 quarters of football. Oregon, they only played 2 quarters of football. And coaches tell us all the time, finish the game, finish the practice, finish the season. You know, and so when you start playing football and everything's going good in the first couple of quarters, the game's not over. You got 2 more quarters to go. And Oregon didn't get that memo because Oregon State did, and Oregon State came to play.
Jordan, I'm coming back.
All right, thanks, Joey. Great to have you here.
Thank you. You asked me where do I start, and I don't know, but you asked Anthony the question of what was the iceberg. I think the iceberg is the run defense, right? Because that is something, like you can talk about fourth down calls, you can talk about special teams, you could talk about play calling, there are all these little things that contributed to it. But for a quarter and a half, did Oregon State throw the football?
No. They completed 6 passes during the game, it felt like.
It was run after run after run after run after run. And there was nothing that we could do about it, right? So to me, that's the iceberg, right? You can try and plug holes, and you can stick your finger in a leak, and you can try and seal off one of the decks and, leave the violin people up there for all the Titanic stuff. But the fact is that iceberg was Oregon State taking the ball and shoving it down our defense's throat for the better part of the last 20 minutes of that game. And no matter what you try and plug or what other things, are paired with that, there's nothing you could do there. And they imposed their will on us. And like you said, Anthony, they beat us, and they beat us in a way like that made it that much worse, right? I think that's they didn't, we say, completed 6 passes. They didn't throw a pass in the fourth quarter. I mean, not that I can remember. I think that's the iceberg, is that there's nothing you could do about that.
If there's just one player, one specific moment, it would have to be the dropped punt snap. Because that's an instant 7 points you just handed them. And when you're trying to come back from 21 down in this late in the second half, you need an instant touchdown. In the Alamo Bowl, which we'll talk about later, one thing that people forget about, they talk about the snaps, they talk about Lockett, they talk about the defense. Charles Nelson fumbled a kickoff that allowed TCU to score right away, so they had 2 touchdowns in 40 seconds. So for me, that fumble snap, because if you get a decent punt off, now they have to go maybe 50 or 60 instead of 2 yards. And of their other touchdown drives, only one was a long drive. The others were set up by special teams or the 4th and 1, et cetera. So they only had 36 yards ago, 28 yards ago, and then 2 yards ago in that one. So for me, if there's one single thing, it would be that.
That's the impact of the iceberg. That's what you're saying, Fentress.
That's the gash it put in that flooded 5 compartments instead of 4.
And then the run defense is just like all the water that came flushing.
Yeah,
now you're trying to put holes, like plug
Oregon's
holes.
Pumps weren't working,
and the fans coming on the field is just freezing in the cold water out there, right, with nothing to do afterwards. But
sure.
Just getting started here on Talkin Ducks. When we come back, we're going to compare this game to the Alamo Bowl collapse, as Aaron brought up, and whether or not this game was more painful, more of a shocking loss than what we saw a few years back. Stick around, plenty more Talkin Ducks when we come back.
Do we have to, Fentress?
You're watching Talkin Ducks, built by Par Lumber. Welcome back. Time now for our legendary moment, brought to you by Abby's Legendary Pizza. And well, legendary doesn't always mean positive. As we look back at the Alamo Bowl, Oregon, remember, up 31-0 at halftime over TCU. Vernon Adams knocked out for the rest of the game. Well, and the rest was unfortunate history. Oregon loses 47-41 in overtime. You compare this to the collapse in Corvallis, where Oregon was up 31-10 with just under 5 minutes left in the third quarter. Oregon State comes back, they defeat the Ducks, and Aaron, not only does Oregon State defeat Oregon, but it takes Pac-12 championship game off the table, potential Rose Bowl berth off the table, everything that comes with that, the trappings as well too, and for Oregon State, helps them make a statement in the North. There's a lot more with that. So I guess my question to you is, you look at the most notable collapses in recent Oregon football history, which no one loves to do, of course. Which one to you will go down as the most painful loss between these two?
Absolutely.
Anthony, you and I can take a break this
Absolutely.
segment. This is Aaron's time.
Licking his chops right there. He's got his napkin in his lap ready to go.
I've always done this thing, especially when I was covering the team full time, where I would call the game at a certain point based on Oregon's got it over, now especially during the Mariota era, right? And sometimes it'd be second quarter, third quarter, whatever, and fans would come at me, you're a jinx, blah, blah, blah. Only one time did I ever get it wrong, and that was the Alamo Bowl. But Vernon Adams got hurt, so I've always qualified that's not on me. I can't predict injuries. This game the other day, it was 31-10, and I almost tweeted, this thing is over. And I thought, no, I'm going to wait because Oregon State's at home and see what happens. What transpired was absolutely more devastating than what we saw in the Alamo Bowl. The Alamo Bowl, the bad snaps from Brenner, the center going out, Hegarty, and you got the bad snaps. Charles Nelson fumbled a kick. Jeff Lockett couldn't complete a pass. The defense just got lit up. They didn't stop him once. That was all bad, right? But if Vernon plays, it's a continued blowout because Vernon was unstoppable. In this game, you had your quarterback there. the quarterback that helps you go up 31-10 was still in the game. And you couldn't figure out a way to just get a drive. Just get a drive and score, and then you stop it all from unraveling. So for me, way worse of collapse because you had your quarterback and the other team didn't have a quarterback who could not throw the ball to your team, right? He threw 2 picks that were so bad. Jonathan Smith basically took the passing playbook or passing sheet and lit it on fire and said, we're going to run the rest of the game. And it worked. It worked. So yeah, this by far. And then what you talked about, Pac-12 title game on the line versus winning an Alamo Bowl. They had won an Alamo Bowl a couple years prior. And so, fans wouldn't even care. They weren't even at that game. I think there's like 2 Oregon fans at the entire event that week. So yes, to me, this is by far way worse.
Yeah, Anthony, it's very poetic that Oregon loses this game at Reser Stadium. They're building half the stadium, so fans aren't even sitting on one half of the stadium. But it's really indicative of what Jonathan Smith is doing here, rebuilding the Oregon State football program. And this is what they play for. Like, I get Oregon State. You're trying to get to 10 wins and Rose Bowl and all this stuff. But beating Oregon is such an accomplishment for them every single season. And for the Ducks, you look at what this loss means for in-state, conference narrative, Northwest narrative. You put into perspective how painful this is. I mean, obviously you want to move on, but it has to be addressed.
No, it hurts. I'm telling you right now, it hurts. And Aaron's right. I mean, this is not even close to the TCU game, the Alamo Bowl. Not even close, because it's the team that you hate, the team that you don't like, the team that you dislike. You can't lose to a team like this in that situation. And for me, being a defensive guy, sitting here watching that run offense of Oregon State just run right through Oregon's defense, time after time after time. Like, are you kidding me? They haven't even thrown the ball. And when you throw the ball, everybody's praying it's not going to be intercepted, because it is. But so you run the football and you're down 31-10, and you're running the football and you can't stop it? That hurts. I'm telling you right now. That hurts. So I'll just stay quiet on that.
I want to ask you this, Newman, because I didn't go back and watch it again, but it didn't even seem like Oregon said, okay, we're going to stop the run. We're going to put 10 in the box, right? Just leave receivers uncovered. Doesn't matter. Just go man to man, load the box and dare them to throw. Because even if they do throw and you bring the heat, is he going to get off a good pass? He hadn't all day. So did you feel like that they didn't do enough in that area?
Yeah, I did. I'll be honest. I mean, when you see, and Joey, you know this, when you see teams load the box, they got more guys than you can block. So, okay, wait, we got to get some passes off here, because we can't run the football because there's always a free guy in the hole. There's always a free guy in the box. I didn't see that. I didn't see that loading the box to stop the run. And maybe, there were some calls that helps where when you disguise, the safety stays out of the box, and then when the ball is snapped, he's coming down hard in the box. I'm not sure, but sometimes when it's time to, hey, don't disguise, get 10 guys in the box and stop the run so they can do something else. That didn't happen at all.
Jordan, since Anthony took a left-hand turn after your question about how this shapes up for Oregon State and Oregon and Washington, he's so focused on that defense and how they just got run through. I'll answer the question for you, right? Jonathan Smith has built the program back. Let's be honest. We've talked about this for the better part of the last 3 or 4 years, and we have all said year after year that he is building this program, this Oregon State program, back to a place where, maybe not where they were when he was the quarterback yet, but he's building it in his image, right? Scrappy, tough, hard-nosed defensive players, right? He knows who they are. He knows that in Corvallis, they're never going to be able to recruit nationally like Oregon does, like Washington can, like USC. So what has he done? He's put together a team that is built in his image. And he's done an incredible job. Have they surpassed? No, absolutely they haven't surpassed Oregon. But we are now back to a place where this is a rivalry. This is a game. This isn't a, just kind of turn the page at the end of the season. This is These are these games 08, 09, 07, where that Rose Bowl, or excuse me, the Oregon State game determined the Rose Bowl. These are these games of 99, 2000, 2001. They're at a place, and they've done it with a solid foundation. Washington has built its way back, right? Washington State has built its way back. Let's not forget that we had to claw and scrap and fight just to win that one on the road at the end. So, and I think when you combine that with a new coach, a new staff, there is not this perceived notion that Oregon is head and shoulders above the rest of the Northwest right now. Kalen DeBoer has done a fantastic job at Washington and built them back. Jonathan Smith has done a wonderful job at Oregon State and built them back. At Oregon State, Washington State, they're in the mix. They're like, this is not the Oregon dominant Northwest that we've seen for the past 10 years. This is going to be a fight.
Just remember this.
And it will continue. Aaron, go ahead real quick.
Okay. Oregon has spent the last 4 or 5 years trying to chase a national championship, and they've had a couple top 10 recruiting classes. Oregon State's been pretty much trying to chase Oregon, and Oregon State's caught them. They beat them 2 of the last 3 years with classes ranked in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, whereas Oregon's had classes ranked in the teens in the top 10. This is not a good look at all for what Oregon's been trying to accomplish the last 4 years.
No, not at all. And it's going to get even more difficult for Oregon because when we come back, they lose their offensive coordinator, Kenny Dillingham. He's now the head coach at Arizona State. We'll talk about that impact when we return. You're watching Talkin Ducks, built by Par Lumber. Welcome back to Talkin Ducks. Not only did Oregon lose the game to Oregon State, they also lost their offensive coordinator. Kenny Dillingham, at 32 years young, will now become the youngest head coach in college football, as he is now the head coach at Arizona State. And guys, he's from Scottsdale. This was a dream job for him, graduated from ASU, so obviously you never pass an opportunity like this up. And Aaron, it's funny, I was on campus at Tempe working a basketball game the week before this Oregon State game, and they threw his name out there as far as the guy they're looking to get. They got him, so let's talk about the impact of Kenny Dillingham going to Arizona State, what this means for Oregon, and then on the heels of that, do you think it impacted any of the way the offense played the last couple of games, knowing that these talks were going on?
Unless the player says that, I just can't imagine that a coach can't do his job coaching and wanting to win and also have his, mind split a little bit looking at another job. I think many coaches have done that in the history of this sport and still won. So I just can't believe that it had anything to do with their performance. I think Bo Nix, or ankle, foot, whatever it was far more damaging than whatever was going on in Dillingham's head. As far as the impact, replaceable. I mean, he's a good coach. He's had one great year. I'm shocked he's gotten a Power 5 job at 32. I think that speaks to something else we won't talk about here today. But I think he's replaceable, and I think they're going to be able to go out and get a good coordinator, because if you come to Oregon and become a good coordinator, guess what? You get a head coaching job. We can go through the list. Tedford, Bellotti got elevated, Kelly got elevated, Helfrich got elevated, Arroyo got a head coaching job, Dillingham just got one more, got another head coaching job. So you come to Oregon, you ramp up the offense, you're going to get a head coaching job.
So question for you, Aaron. You're telling me if the New York Times started negotiations with you, waving millions of dollars in front of your face, your articles you would write would not be impacted at all as those conversations are going on.
Bad analogy, because...
Hey! No.
Let me respond.
It's the same thing.
Let me respond. No, it's not the same thing. Writing an article is different than competing in a sporting event where you're trying to win. If you're telling me that Dillingham wouldn't care about winning the Pac-12 title...
Oh, we know.
Or wouldn't care about going to a Rose Bowl... then that doesn't make sense.
You got under his skin.
No, wait. When I left the Oregonian to go to NBC Sports Northwest, they asked me to write an article in my last 2 weeks. I was like, sure, I'll get right on that. So yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you to a certain extent, but I don't believe it applies in competitive situations.
Subconsciously, maybe instead of a period, you're using a semicolon, no different than, hey, behind our own 40, fourth and one, who cares? I got a head coaching job
anyway, let's roll the dice. Then you're not a competitor.
You're not saying that couldn't happen.
Then you're not a competitor. You're not a competitor, and the player should take you in the back and give you a beat down.
Go to commercial, Jordan. Go to commercial.
Yeah, all right. Well, Dillingham going to Arizona State. One question here real quick, though, Anthony. You get a 5-star commit and more, the quarterback coming that was close to Dillingham. Obviously, for Oregon, you got to be somewhat concerned because if he bonded with the offensive coordinator, he's now gone.
Yeah, he is, but that's the nature of what's going on right now. I mean, people, I know we can get into this, and it could be another topic, another segment, but I don't think they should be allowed to talk to coaches during the season. And Dan Lanning did it with Georgia, and all that kind of stuff, and I get that. But when Aaron's talking about your competitors, but you need to master what you're doing. And to master what you're doing, that's the task at hand, and that's to run this Oregon offense. And when you have somebody calling you on the late night phone about, hey, well, I'll give you, so many $1 million to come to the school, like, oh, yeah, real? Okay, well, I was in the middle of dealing with my offense. Hey, let me take this phone call real quick.
That's why you have agents.
It's not about competing. It's about, hey, I need to master what I'm doing. I need to be very good at what I'm doing right now. And I'm getting distracted because my life can change. And nothing against Dillingham. Hey, yeah, go take
get
that.
yours. Get that bag.
Exactly. I'm gone. I would be too. I'll be out of here. But the whole system, I'm saying, is messed up to allow that to happen.
Right. Joe, any closing thoughts before we go to break?
No.
Okay.
It's a pretty slow day for me.
All right. When we come back, Bo Nix, his decision whether or not to play in this upcoming potential Holiday Bowl. We'll let you know whether or not Bo should stay or go when we come back on Talkin Ducks. You're watching Talkin Ducks, built by Par Lumber. Welcome back. It's time for some excellence on the football field, presented by Ferguson Wellman. Ferguson Wellman taking a disciplined approach to investing. Bo Nix postgame on the loss and his future moving forward with the bowl game looming for Oregon.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. Losing sucks. Losing in that way, really, there's no fun in it. It's miserable. But there's a bunch of ways that you can learn and grow from it. And so as a team, we're going to go back to the drawing board and meet. We're going to take our medicine that the coaches give us, and we're going to go out there and improve and not let this happen again. Our season's not over with, so whatever the next game's going to be, whenever we find that out, we'll be looking forward to that next game. And kind of the way college football goes is, a lot of things change from season to season, so you can't worry about that until the season is kind of completed and finished. There's still some football left to play.
All right, we just heard from Bo and Joey. Interesting decision for Bo Nix coming up because you put together a sensational season that has really changed the narrative about you as a player. You have the numbers to back it up, the performance as well too. But you are banged up heading into a bowl game, and nobody really quite knows where the NFL draft stock is, but he's certainly moved up there to maybe a second or third round pick. Who knows? Maybe even higher. You're in his shoes. I'm going to ask you the tough question. Would you play, especially with your offensive coordinator no longer there?
You
can't give me I don't know as an answer.
Yeah,
Joey would play.
I know what I'm thinking.
He's a gamer.
Stop interrupting. Given what has happened over the last few years and decisions about playing in bowl games, I would not have been surprised if he chose not to play. Assuming that he is deciding to go on to the NFL. Listening to him speak in that press conference, though, he talked about learning from these situations and getting better, right? There was definitely, and I don't know, maybe it's just that canned response of the things you just say at a press conference after a loss, but it seemed like, Bo seems like a genuine guy, right? He seems like a stand-up, straightforward, just like, hey, here's what I'm feeling, here's what I'm going to give you, and I'm going to be honest with you. That press conference there made me feel like he still wanted to improve on something. Made me feel like he still wanted to play. So if I was a betting man, I would say that he plays. That's just kind of my gut, just based on who I've seen him or how I've seen him act as a person and listening to him speak and be a leader of the team. Now, that could also be because, if there's an NIL deal waiting for him to come back and he comes back for next season. Like, we're making the assumption that he is leaving for the NFL, right? That's part of the question. So I don't know. If I'm betting, I say that he plays. And I don't know that there's really that much to lose if he is choosing to go to the NFL. I think but that's just me. That's probably what I would do.
All right, come to me next.
So, Aaron, Bo's 2 best seasons as a quarterback, freshman year at Auburn, this past year at Oregon, were with Kenny Dillingham on the staff. That will not be the case for this bowl game. It will not be the case next year if he stays and plays at Oregon. So what do you do if you're Bo Nix?
Okay. It's all going to come down to what the draft grade says and what an NIL package says. If his draft grade comes back, first 3 rounds, he's got to go. He's just got to go. He's just get too much money. That means a team is going to want you to maybe groom you to be a starter. Even if you're a 3rd rounder, you're going to get a chance probably at some point. So you got to go. You're going to make a ton of money. Plus, you want to get in as soon as you can so you can get to your next contract as soon as you can because that's going to be the fat one. That's one. If the draft grade is late, 5, 6, 7, you could end up being a practice squad guy. You could end up just being cut. How much practice squad guys make, Jordan. You made some nice little coin, but it's nothing compared to what a quarterback makes on the roster, and it's probably nothing compared to what Oregon can offer him NIL-wise. So to me, that's all it is. Like, I'm sitting back going, okay, what's my grade? What am I going to make in the NFL? Okay, it's not going to be great. So Oregon, what do you got for me? $1 million? Okay, I'm coming back. And as far as the bowl game goes, if you're going pro, you're not going anywhere near another practice for Oregon. You're not going to do a thing. Even if you're going to come back, I don't go in near that bowl game unless I'm really healthy, to be honest with you. I kind of think about whether I play. Now, it's going to be a while out, so he's probably going to have time to heal, and I think he's that kind of guy where he's going to want to go out there and end the season right and be a leader and win, so I do think he would play. Me personally, I'd flip a coin, but it's all going to come down to the money, and that's what it should come down to because he's a commodity. Treat yourself like a commodity because that's how Oregon's going to treat you. Make the best deal for you and your family moving forward.
Anthony.
It's funny how we all think that we know what other people are going to do. We know the answers.
I know what you're going to do right now.
We have no clue. Everybody's situation is totally different. I mean, Justin Herbert came back, and people think it's always about the money. For some people, it might not be about the money. We can't say that because we don't know. We don't know.
We knew. Okay? We knew why Herbert came back, though.
We can assume things of, okay, yeah, he wants to play in the NFL. I get that. Or, yeah, he wants to play in college for another year. I'm not sure. Whatever decisions he's going to make is going to be based on the information that he's going to gather from his agent or his family. And then right now, he might not know what he's trying to do. He might be confused. He's a young man. I mean, he's not 30-something years old. He's a young man trying to figure out, okay, what's going on here? I just lost my offensive coordinator. We lost, some tough games. Do I play in a bowl game? Do I not? He's getting all this information. So, what we should say is that, hey, whatever he does, let's be happy for him. It'd be great for him to come in and play in this bowl game. He's a competitor. That's what he wants to do. Yeah, I want to play in a bowl game. But then somebody's telling him, stay healthy, go to the next level, start to get paid for what you do. But again, the information that he gathers, am I going to get drafted high enough to go make that move right now? We don't know.
Right, that's what I said. But with Herbert came back for a 4th year, not a 5th, like Bo would be. And Herbert, it was pretty much well talked about that he just wasn't ready mature-wise. That's why Mariota came back for his redshirt junior year, because they were young. And they just didn't feel like they were ready yet from a maturity standpoint to go to pro, so they came back for 1 year. Bo is a freaking adult. Dude's married. He's played 4 years of college. He comes across as an adult far more than Marcus and Herbert did after their 3rd year. They were still kids, you could tell. And I got to know their parents and would talk to them about it, and they would say, yeah, they're still kid-like in a lot of ways. Not the case with Bo.
Well, yeah, Anthony already said that you have to be 37 in order to be an adult, so that was the that he just established that. So.
Yeah, Aaron, I'll close it with this. I think you're absolutely right. And I think what's surprising to me is I don't think there are that many quarterbacks that are better than Bo Nix that would knock him down to 5th, 6th, or 7th round based upon what we've seen, the dual threat that he shows, the way that the NFL is kind of starting to trend with their quarterbacks, right, where they do want them to start to run a little bit more. So if I'm a betting man, I think he's gone. So we'll see what happens. All right, when we come back, we'll talk more about this Holiday Bowl coming up. We'll touch on some transfer news as well, too, as Oregon still has some season left. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Talkin Ducks. You're watching Talkin Ducks, built by Par Lumber. Welcome back. Time now for What's Cooking, brought to you by Sam's Northwest Barbecue, located in Sherwood, just southwest of Portland. Your home for Yoder Smoker products and so much more. And guys, Oregon will have a bowl game to play in still. Despite the loss to Oregon State, there is still some football left, a chance for this team to get to 10 wins. And Aaron, you pointed out, there haven't even been 10 teams that have gotten to 10 wins in Oregon's history. But how important is this bowl game? When you look at the Holiday Bowl potentially is where they might land, and what's happened with Dillingham and the decision with Bo Nix. How important is it to end the season on a solid performance in this bowl game? Because certainly wasn't the case last year for Oregon.
First of all, let me say that right now they're projected to play Duke, which is an ACC team, which means it would have been possible to play Miami had Mario had his act together down there. Oh my God, how awesome would that have been? Woo! Anyway, it's not going to happen. No, I think it's important. I'm shocked that a lot of fans are just over bowls, like, oh, we don't care about the bowl. I think you absolutely should want to win this game because Oregon's floundering right now in a lot of little ways. I know people don't want to necessarily look at it, but since going 12-2 in 2019, they are 23-10. 2 bowl game losses, both were routes. They've lost to Oregon State twice. They just lost at home to Washington. I mean, really, their signature moment in that time was beating Ohio State early last season, and they didn't really capitalize on that. Got smacked around twice by Utah last year. Like, it's just there's a lot of negativity in the last 3 years in comparison to what this program believes it should be. So to me, yeah, end the season on a high note with a bowl game win. Because even if you lose a bunch of players in the next few weeks, all of the players in that game are going to be your foundation for next season. So it should be important to try and win that game. If you lose Bo, it's going to be tough. But still, yes, I think they need to win a bowl game. They need to win something. They haven't won anything in a while.
Yeah, it's really funny you mentioned that, Aaron, because we saw those young receivers last year ball out in the bowl game, and obviously Troy Franklin did what he did this year. But, you know, Joey, you look at this, and Aaron points out 23-10. Does this game change the narrative, move the needle positively for Oregon, or is it going to be more so the next moves Oregon makes with offensive coordinator who's going to be quarterback next year, Lanning maturing as a coach? That's going to really dictate where this team goes moving forward.
Well, I don't think beating Duke in a bowl game is going to move the needle. I mean, it's not going to erase the 10 losses. You know, it's not going to, make the 23-10 go away because Aaron was pretty much spot on. I mean, that is what the last few years have looked like. But the importance of it, I think, is in this new, we talked about it at the beginning of the year. College football has changed. Like we have all acknowledged that college football is no longer what it was a couple years ago. If they go out and in back-to-back seasons go loss to Utah, go Oregon State loss in a bowl game, what does that do to the transfers? What does that do to the perception? What does that do to the, what was this brand that everybody wants to come play for? Is it going to be, immediate and monumental? No, but I mean, there is an important factor to finishing, with a 10-win season because you're no longer trying to just recruit high school kids who are coming in to load your program a couple years from now. You are literally trying to recruit players from other teams to come in and be on your team next year. It's free agency. So if I was a free agent and I saw one team cash it in versus another that went out and steadily improved and is on an upward trajectory, I'd say that's probably the team that I want to be a part of. So there is a different mindset that has to exist now that college football has changed.
Anthony, quick thought as far as this bowl game and what it means for Oregon.
I think it's real simple. I mean, you guys come out and compete to win football games. I don't care what bowl game it is. I don't care who you're playing against. It's a football game, and you get out in the field and you compete to win. And, a lot of the coaches are going to be looking at the guys going, hey, these guys are the guys that we're going to use next year. Let's see how they finish the season. We keep talking about finishing the game, finish the season. the bowl game, you got to finish up on top because you got to help erase that Oregon State game. You know, you got to go off thinking, hey, look, we're positive. We won our last game. We got to 10 wins, like Joey said. That's a positive year.
Mm-hmm. I will say this. If Bo Nix does not go, and now you look at what the starting quarterback situation is going to be, might make this bowl game just a little bit more enticing and interesting to watch. And that's the thing. I think if you look at this and see what ends up happening with the staff and who's doing the play calling, I think there's enough drama here still as far as the unknown, who's going to step up and play well. And if it is Ty Thompson, I'm tuning in. Obviously, you're going to watch the game no matter what, but you want to see what Ty Thompson can do with a full game. That might set the stage for next year potentially. All right. When we come back, we'll have more as far as Oregon getting set for next season. We'll talk some Pac-12 title game just around the corner when we come back on Talkin Ducks. You're watching Talkin Ducks, built by Par Lumber. Welcome back to Talkin Ducks, getting set to close things up here shortly, but Dan Lanning, Anthony Newman, comes in. First-year head coach for Oregon, rookie head coach, first year ever being a head coach. You get smacked by Georgia. Everyone kind of saw that coming. But then the expectations rose very quickly throughout the season. Now you're knocking on the door of the playoff. We looked at this stretch down the end of the season. It doesn't go Oregon's way. They go 1-3 in their final 3 games. Obviously, every coach, the honeymoon phase is going to be over when you get done with the regular season. There's some criticisms of Dan Lanning for game management, maybe being a little too aggressive, passing up on points that were there. Do you think the expectations rose too quickly for him in this first year, and are those criticisms fair at this point in the season?
Well, yeah, they're fair, but, you know, guys will make mistakes. He's a first-year coach. I think he's done a great job. I really do. I think he's done a great job with recruiting, with getting the guys to trust in his concepts and his beliefs. And he's learned a lot, and he's going to learn a lot. I mean, it's a first-year coach, and the whole new staff coming together for the first time. That's hard to do. And then you have the possibility of getting 10 wins in your first year coaching. Yeah, I think that's a good year. I think the kids love him. You know, they want to play hard for him. So he's doing the right things. He made some mistakes, and new coaches are going to make mistakes. I think when we start to grade him, we start looking 2 years down, 3 years down the road going, okay, hey, look, you're making the same mistakes you made your first year. You can't do that anymore. That's when we start to get, we start to question him. But right now, I think he's done a great job.
Aaron, evaluation at this point in the year, Dan Lanning, when you've had a chance to kind of see an entire season's bodies of work.
He's got to go. No, I'm kidding. Listen, he's done a great job. There's no doubt about that. But, you know, the expectations were ridiculous because he won the championship at Georgia with that great defense, so he was supposed to fix this defense right away. Well, that didn't happen. Mario was criticized on the way out. In hindsight, he made a bunch of mistakes. Dan Lanning's going to be smarter. Well, Dan Lanning making mistakes too. All coaches make mistakes. Vince Lombardi probably made some mistakes back in the day as well. So those are inevitable things, especially with a first-year coach. My only thing is that what I really liked, Gonzalo wrote an article saying that there was a major booster criticizing Mullins for this hire. Because if they had hired a veteran coach, they might have not lost that game or whatever. And I'm like, well, okay, first of all, those coaches aren't wanting to come to Oregon. Number two, this was the smart play because you're allowing someone to come to Oregon and grow into a great veteran coach and hopefully stay here. And that means you're going to experience growing pains. He isn't some savant. He's a good young coach who has to learn like everybody else. And I think he will. That said, I don't think the decisions people are crying about are really that big a deal. Like, there's a bunch of whining in hindsight. Everybody's all like, oh, go for it. Then when you don't get it, why did we go for it? We should have punted. That's all nonsense.
Wait, you're telling me Black 13 doesn't hit on the table every single time?
Now look, personally me, 4th and 1 at the 29 in that situation, I'm probably thinking, punt it, make them go the length of the field because they had so many short, easy, quick drives. But he was probably thinking, if I punt it, I can't stop them from running it, so I should be able to get a yard.
Can't even catch the punt, Aaron. You can't even catch the punt.
100%. I understand. There's 1,000 different things you could look at. The bottom line is what? Oregon State made a play. Oregon State tackled him. Remember in the Washington game, it was if Bo was in there on 4th and 1, we would have gotten the first down. Well, Bo was in there on 4th and 1 against Oregon State. He kept the ball, and he didn't get the first down because the other team is there to make plays too. So crying about what Lanning did or didn't do is just mindless. Jonathan Smith is a really good football coach, as good as Dan Lanning, probably, and they happen to win the game. That's life. He'll learn from it, move on, get better.
Jordan,
that's the thing, Joey. Go ahead.
I love how everybody just takes these turns to go right back to that Beaver game. With the exception of all, let's take the game analysis that Aaron took us back to out of it. Everything that you guys have all said is true. And it can, even though it's contradictory at times, it can all still be true. Is Dan Lanning a good young coach? Absolutely. Did he make mistakes coaching? Absolutely. Is that criticism of those mistakes warranted? Absolutely. Did people's expectations grow too quickly after the 6-7 game winning streak? Absolutely. Did it show promise and what this team and what he as a coach is capable of? Absolutely. Like, all these things can coexist without having it be like this monumental, oh my God, he's got to go, or he's got to, or the flip side is he's the best coach in the history of the world, or if we had a veteran coach, then we wouldn't. Like, just take a deep breath. He's a good young coach who did a very good job in his first year. He made mistakes, and he will learn from those mistakes, right?
He'll make others, right?
Exactly, and he'll continue to make mistakes. And like you said, Vince Lombardi made mistakes, Aaron. Like, there is this expectation of perfection in every moment that leads to just chucking the baby out with the bathwater, right? Like, just take a step back and look at this entire picture, which was a first time ever head coach taken to a team on the verge of a 10-win season. That's really good. Does it suck to lose to Washington and Oregon State? Yeah, it does. Those two things can coexist, as well as every other praise and criticism at the same time. But let's just...
Yep. And you can learn from that, and the man can recruit. Stick around. We'll wrap
Well
up
said.
shop and get to our picks for the Pac-12 title game here on Talkin Ducks. You're watching Talkin Ducks, built by Par Lumber. Welcome back. Time now for our rock solid pick, brought to you by Milan Stoneworks, bringing you the finest stoneworks in the Northwest. All right, Pac-12 championship game is set, Anthony. USC versus Utah rematch, which the Utes won by 1 in Salt Lake City earlier this season. My question, though, is not necessarily a pick for this game, but if you're a Pac-12 fan, do you want USC winning this game and going to the college football playoff, knowing they are bolting for the Big Ten in less than 2 years?
Oh, I forgot.
I'm not a USC fan, but I'm a Pac-12 fan. So I'm pulling for USC. You know, I want USC to represent the Pac-12 because the Pac-12 gets no love whatsoever nationwide. Here's another thing. You know, USC, everybody thinks USC is always going to win every year for the last 10 years, and they haven't done anything. Now they finally have a chance to do something. We need, and I think Joy said this a long time ago, we need the USCs, the Washingtons, to be good again, to help the Pac-12. So then when Oregon competes against those teams, now that gives them some more, hey, oh yeah, you guys beat USC, you're really good. Oh, you beat Washington, you're really good. So yes, I want USC to play in the playoffs.
But they're leaving.
Aaron.
They're leaving. I agree with everything you said if USC wasn't leaving. So if the UFC's leaving, they're kicking you to the curb. Well, I don't want them to have success if I'm a Pac-12 fan. I want them to lose badly. If they go to the playoffs, I want them to get smashed.
Are they here for the 2 years? Correct?
You're not doing anything for our conference.
One more season after this.
Okay, that's all that matters. You're here for another season. So we're looking at what happens now. We got one season. I still want the national media. Good. I don't know. You want the
Joey.
Yeah.
Do you want them fighting on to the college football playoff?
Not only do I want them fighting on, they're going to beat Georgia in the first round and win the national championship.
Whatever. No, they're
Wow.
not. No, they're not.
Okay, that is a pick
He's lying.
to end all picks right there. That'll do it for this edition of Talkin Ducks. Enjoy the Pac-12 title game. We'll give you more updates on all the transfers that will inevitably happen as Oregon gets set for their bowl game matchup next week. From all of us here, thanks again. We'll catch up with you next time.